At this difficult time for our nation, we are inspired by the extraordinary resilience of the survivors and their unrelenting hope for a better future, and inspired by the resolve of all of you who are committed to helping the museum shape that future. Good evening, and thank you for joining us for the 10th anniversary of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum's New York event, and our first ever virtual event. I'm Andy Varkas, the museum's director of the Northeast region. This evening will be much shorter than usual, but we have inspirational stories from our MC, Diane von Furstenberg, from Benjamin Ferenz, and dramatic readings and stories from celebrities and survivors. Institutions alone cannot change the world. It takes many partners and exceptional leaders, like those we have recognized over the past decade. 2010, Howard Gannick. 2011, Oliver Stanton. 2012, the Halpern family and the Pantera Pines and Schwartz families. 2013, Jill and Peter Krause. 2014, survivor Eva Cooper and the Honorable Michael Mukasey. 2015, Todd Fisher and Howard Unger. 2016, Alan Lizowski. 2017, Elisa Spungen-Bildner and Robert Bildner, and the late and much missed Sheila Johnson-Robbins. 2018, Howard Lorber. 2019, Gary Jacob and Stacy Science.
I am so humbled to stand before you tonight. Thank you for giving me this special honor.
I want to begin by congratulating all the past honorees. If we were together, we would most certainly give you a well-deserved standing ovation. I am Diane von Furstenberg, and it is a pleasure to be with you on this very important event. As the daughter of the Holocaust survivor, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum is especially personal to me. So too is this year, as we mark the 75th anniversary of the end of the war, World War II, and the liberation of all the survivors. Let me take you to May 1944 in occupied Belgium. A young girl, 21 years old, her name is Lili Namias. She gets arrested and shipped to Auschwitz-Birkenau. For 13 months, she will be in the camps, but she did survive. She weighed 49 pounds. Her mother couldn't believe it when she came back and took care of her, feeding her like a bird every few minutes. She waited for her fiancé to come back from Switzerland, where he had been for 3 years. They got married, and the doctor told them, in no way you can have a child. You're not ready, you won't survive it, and your child will not be normal. Well, guess what? 9 months later, I was born, and I was kind of normal. My mother used to tell me, God saved me so that I give you life. By giving you life, you gave me my life back. You are my torch of freedom. I have been involved in the museum since its inception. When you think about the moment we are living now, the enormity of changes and challenges, remember this history and its lesson about the fragility of freedom, the nature of hate, and the consequences of indifference could not be more relevant. Those of us who have come together this evening to support the museum's mission understand this. But do younger people do? We have to make sure that everybody remembers. To remember is to give voice to the 6 million that were silenced. 6 million lives, lives of hopes, of dreams, challenges, and opportunities. Lives just like ours. 75 years later, we remember for them and for us. Let's watch.
It is an honor and privilege to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the end of World War II in Europe with you. Really, the end of two wars. A military one over territory in Germany's genocidal war against the Jews.
Irvin Haber was on a transport from Malines, Belgium to Auschwitz on August 4th, 1942, when he threw 2 letters from the train. Dear Finder, I am a Jewish boy who was caught in Brussels. I am part of a transport of Jewish children who are deported to Poland. We are watched by the Gestapo and not allowed to write, and I am trying to throw this out of the train. I thank you from my heart that you are doing this good deed to my old grandmother and little sister who do not know where I am. Irvin Haber was gassed to death upon his arrival.
Dear family, no fever anymore. Finally, we go. Very weak, but full of courage. My beloved children are next to me. Johanna and her sons were killed shortly after their arrival to Auschwitz.
We are headed for Metz to rejoin Mama. Everything is okay. We will arrive this evening. We hope to find Mama. Be strong. We will see each other soon. No one in the family survived.
My dearest darlings, we have just passed Toulouse at 12 noon. You can imagine how I feel. I am happy and glad that I don't have you two, my darlings, here with me. In God's name, be brave and calm. Heartfelt kisses to you. Your Mama.
Wilma and Kurt Grunwald and their 2 sons were deported to Auschwitz. Eventually, the oldest son, who was handicapped, was selected for death. In a state of mind that is unimaginable to us, Wilma decided to voluntarily accompany him to the gas chamber so that he wouldn't go through this ordeal alone. You, my only and dearest one, do not blame yourself for what happened. It was our destiny. Take care of the little golden boy and don't spoil him too much with your love. Have a fabulous life. We must board the trucks. Into eternity, Wilma.
We would be the fathers, the teachers, educators of the future. But no, we shall certainly not live to see it.
We note a proof of guilt which is useless for ourselves. The trace should be thrown like a stone under the wheel of history in order to stop it.
We may now die in peace. We fulfilled our mission. May history attest for us.
In the spring of 1945, American troops in Germany and Austria came upon concentration camps at Buchenwald, Dachau, Nordhausen, Mauthausen, and Ohrdruf. The soldiers saw the camps with their own eyes, and the truth was undeniable. The things I saw beggar description. The visual evidence and verbal testimony of starvation, cruelty, and bestiality were overpowering.
Inside the fence, there were hundreds and hundreds of people crowding. I was 13 years old. I could worm my way through them to get to the front.
We heard the voice telling us, "You are free." It's undescribable, unbelievable. The first minutes, it was magic. It was a miracle. It was a cocktail of happiness.
I think I remember shouting and waving, and then I collapsed unconscious.
These people were scheduled to die, and the preparations were so efficient from the standpoint of disease and starvation. There isn't much that can be done about it.
so hungry. I remember being so hungry. We were so isolated, cold, abandoned by the world.
A little girl, doubled with the gnawing pains of starvation, cried pitifully for help. Everywhere we turned, the pathetic cry of "Wasser, Wasser" met our ears.
So that was the first time I saw Americans, American young soldiers, feeding us, dressing us. They were wonderful. They were the best people that I can imagine.
Dear Mother, anything you hear about that place, you can believe. It is not propaganda.
It's all the truth, as I saw it with my own eyes.
A sergeant whose mother and father disappeared into a Nazi concentration camp 3 long years ago turned his head and remarked in a tear-choked voice, "And Hitler wanted to rule the world."
To Johanna,
Erwin,
Vilma,
David, and all the others, we will never forget. We pledge to you that we will make your mission ours.
When the museum opened, the Holocaust was living memory. We can't let it become distant history. We built the museum at a particular moment. We planted a flag. We put a powerful, enduring marker here on America's National Mall. The memory is now in our hands, in your hands. The challenge is, what are we going to do with it? Memory was never meant to be contained in this building. It was meant to be unleashed as a force for change. Anti-Semitism and hate didn't start with the Holocaust, nor end with it. They are relentless problems, and we too must be relentless. Because the world always changes, but human nature never does. Right now, we face a perfect storm. Rising hate, growing social media, declining history education. So just when we're giving human beings more power than ever before to influence and be influenced, we're not preparing them for this unprecedented responsibility. That's why history matters, especially Holocaust history. And that's why we're building something new, a global digital enterprise. COVID temporarily closed the museum, but it opened new possibilities. It changed how we work.
Put questions in the chat or raise your hands.
How we built the collection.
We've also had people reach out to us through the online programming.
Convened scholars.
A specific connection to the archival material we've looked at on liberation.
And reached policymakers.
The purposes of the legislation, it is to stop violence against the citizenry.
Meeting this challenge has made us better and stronger. And we're serving more people now than ever before. And nowhere has the impact been greater than in the shift to an all-digital educational enterprise.
How would we suggest teachers use the timeline activity for remote instruction when teaching online?
So teachers could assign students to read a specific individual profile card.
The most important audience for the museum in terms of education is youth. So when we had to go from in-person experiences with youth and with educators who reach youth into remote learning environments, we were more than thrilled to be able to rely on what had been built here, what had been invested in here at the museum. We had digital collections, we had digital educational resources, but we had to think about how to make those appropriate and adapt them for these remote learning environments.
Eastern Florida State College would like to express our gratitude.
Just a huge thank you for all of the resources for myself and for the teachers across Tennessee.
Regularly reaching out to me as a faculty member and asking what I needed, what they could do for me.
Lessons and unit plans, Facebook Live sessions.
I took advantage of the Ask a Librarian sessions. I found the Experiencing History portal really very helpful.
The live digital lectures was a great way for us to stay connected.
And I found myself looking for those types of resources to assign to students.
Students with Uneven internet connections dispersed across the state could nonetheless continue to access high quality content.
And that for us was really exciting because we knew that that was immediate needs. But we also wanted to think about, is it just for the moment, or can this help us in the long run? For example, in the summer, we would normally bring 250 teachers to the museum to learn about content and pedagogy. When we asked those teachers, would you come if we did it in a virtual format, they said yes.
Today, I welcome you to a very different conference than the one we all envisioned.
Word spread, and before we knew it, we had over 1,000 educators, 4 times as many were able to attend. And when we heard that there were teachers from Bethel, Alaska, Mobile, Alabama, and Paint Lick, Kentucky, we knew that we had achieved something really special.
Educators from all around the world came together to receive quality Holocaust education from the museum.
I don't know what I would do during this time without you.
These were all resources that made a difference in teachers' daily lives. And it also has made a difference in how we move forward as teachers.
One of the earliest transitions that we made with our programs was for the program that invites local youth in DC to become ambassadors for the museum.
Ambassadors, I'm not the only one who has congratulations and well wishes. Our guest speaker served on the museum council, but you may know him better as a 2-time NBA champion, Mr. Ray Allen.
I want to take this moment to say I'm amazed by you all. I'm encouraged. I'm thankful. And each one of you young people has an opportunity to determine what our futures are going to be.
My name is Rose Bohm, and I'm a sophomore at Washington.
My name is Ativa D'Souza, and I'm a rising junior at the Thomas.
We have all learned so much.
We are the leaders the museum has built.
Make us want to go out and create an impact on our own personal communities.
We have an obligation to speak out and stand up against hate and bigotry in this world.
As we go forward, we're going to be thinking about how we maximize these new remote tools in ways that complement our in-person successes. But whether we're engaging remotely or in person, the museum is going to continue to engage leaders who are so central to the health of our democracy.
Welcome to week 3 of Crisis Leadership and National Security.
Since the spring, we've run programs for international military officers, senior level government and military leaders, as well as police, prosecutors, lawyers, and judges.
It would be impossible not to bring it up, right? It is what is on everyone's mind right now.
We create meaningful remote educational experiences for our audiences, and it's only going to enhance our capacity to lead not only nationally, but also globally.
We're constantly listening. We're constantly off kilter in the sense that we know the world is changing around us and we have to listen and we have to be ready to respond, but the challenge is great.
The museum has met this moment, but our work isn't done.
History is a lesson and a warning. It can also be a source of hope. When people look back on the Holocaust, they often ask, what would I have done? Our job now is to get them to ask, what will I do? And we need your help.
What we just saw was only possible because of your generous support. And thank you all for joining us. I am Howard Lauber. As the chairman of the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, I have had a front row seat to the incredible job the museum staff and leadership has done to keep our virtual doors wide open as the entire country had to shift to remote learning. The question now is not only what does this history, this memory require of us, but what does the future demand of us? At a time of rising violent anti-Semitism and continuing genocide, we must invest now in the future we want for our children and grandchildren. In these challenging times, it is clear we have much work ahead of us. It is up to us to ensure that the museum can continue to expand its educational mission through digital outreach and build a truly global enterprise at a time when 2/3 of young people do not know 6 million Jews were murdered in the Holocaust. Unimaginable. It is up to us to ensure that the museum can push back on the ever-present and increasingly bold voices of those who would deny or distort the history of the Holocaust. Since we temporarily closed the museum in mid-March, we have been grappling with the enormous challenge of how to safely reopen the museum and its crown jewel, the permanent exhibition, to the public. I'm thrilled to share that we are days away from reopening the museum to a limited number of visitors. I said it's up to us earlier because we literally need everyone's support. We need you to make your gift now. This is an all hands on deck moment. And we are so fortunate to have NBA All-Star and former Museum Council member Ray Allen on our team. Ray, it is so great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
Please join me in welcoming Ray Allen.
Well, I have to start out by saying how important the museum is not only to me, but the people who I've had the opportunity to bring to the museum. 2 weeks ago, one of my ex-trainers, he sent me a picture of the time that we were in the museum, the whole team. And he, in caption, said one of his favorite times of his whole career, and how that still strikes a chord with him till this day. This is history. This is world history. It's not Jewish history. It's not American history. It's not European history. It's world history because it affected all of us. You know, my voice is heard by many. And so it's important that I teach them a way to teach others, to help others, to bring others in and to incorporate people into building a better America and a better world. The museum has to be the foremost authority on that. And that's why we stand up for this museum today. So it's important that each and every one of you understand now it is your time to make a difference. It is your time to do something that's going to affect the future, not only of your family, but of the world. You have the power because it's within your power or your pocketbook or your influence to step up and say, never again.
Ray, on behalf of all of us, thank you for everything you do to use your influence to advance a broader understanding of the Holocaust. We are here today to pledge and commit to this very important museum. I cannot ask you to pledge if I don't do it myself. So I am pledging $100,000 and I invite you to join me. 1945 was a year of reckoning. It marked not only the liberation of the camps with the establishment of the Nuremberg tribunals by the US and its allies, it marked the beginning of the long march of pursuing justice in the face of unimaginable crimes. It is an honor and my great privilege this evening to introduce Benjamin Ferenz, who at 100 years old is the last survivor prosecutor in the Nuremberg trials. Born to a Hungarian Jewish family, Ben was an infant when they arrived in the US after World War I. Following law school, he served in the artillery until the Second World War. Towards the end of the war, he was assigned to a team tasked with collecting evidence for the newly formed War Crimes Branch. Sent to the concentration camp as American soldiers liberated them, he too was amongst the first witnesses. After he was honorably discharged from the army, Ben was called back to serve as a prosecutor at Nuremberg. Let's take a look.
We are now ready to hear the presentation by the prosecution.
We ask this court to affirm by international penal action man's right to live in peace and dignity, regardless of his race or creed.
The case we present is a plea of humanity to law. I was then 27 years old. It was my first case. My defendants were 22 high-ranking SS officers. They were accused and convicted of murdering in cold blood over 1 million people.
Now call upon the defendant.
I didn't ask for the death penalty. I simply asked for a new rule of law which would protect humankind against that type of criminal abuse.
The charges we have brought accuse the defendants of having committed genocide.
We hoped that we would lay a foundation stone saying that genocide was a crime. Crimes against humanity are punishable. Nobody is immune. The head of a state will be brought to trial.
For Benjamin Ferenz, this marked a beginning, not an end.
What we want to go is to come up with a clear statement, which we made at Nuremberg 60 years ago, saying that aggression is the supreme international crime for which the leaders will be held to account in an international court.
Instrumental in establishing the International Criminal Court in the 70 years since Nuremberg, Ferenz has acted on his fervent belief that law can and must create a more humane and secure world.
That concludes the prosecution's submissions on the legal characterisation of the conflict, and I'll hand to Mr. Ferenz now.
For the first time, a permanent international criminal court will hear the closing statement for the prosecution as it concludes its first case against its first accused, Mr. Thomas Lubango Dila.
Benjamin Ferenz, a tireless champion of international justice, dedicating his life to replacing the rule of force with the rule of law.
In every way imaginable, Ben Ferenz embodies the museum motto that what we do matters. Please join me in welcoming the iconic, unbelievable Superman, Benjamin Ferenz, who will be interviewed this evening by Naomi Kikoler, the director of the museum's Simon Scott Center for the Prevention of Genocide.
Diane, thank you. Ben, it is so wonderful to be with you again. You lived this history that forever changed our understanding of the capacity for great evil and good. What is the enduring legacy of Nuremberg in terms of international justice?
After World War II, I was a combat soldier. I was fought in every major battle of that war. And I had also seen the horrors of war, which are indescribable and incredible on all sides. I'm talking now, first of all, the concentration camps with dead bodies lying all over the ground, with bones stacked up next to the crematorium. They used to be human beings awaiting to be burned. And the one thing that kept to my mind all the time is never again. But how to create never again? My answer is law, not war. The United States at Nuremberg took a tremendous step forward. We took the lead in substituting law for war and holding accountable those who had been responsible for the war. We would have put Hitler on trial if he had not committed suicide. I had, for example, Dr. Otto Ohlendorf, Major General in the SS. The only time I met privately with Dr. Otto Ohlendorf was after he was sentenced to death. I knew he was going to die. I knew he was the father of 5 children. I knew he was well educated. And I knew, on his own admission, he had murdered at least 70,000 people. So he said, well, I did it in self-defense because Hitler knew the Russians planned to attack us. And if we planned to attack us, we had the right to preempt that by attacking first. And that's what we did. That's a very dangerous doctrine. I don't care what party you belong to. It's a very dangerous doctrine. And my answer to it was, when you make the public realize that you cannot have a peaceful world if you are justifying individual use of armed force to achieve your particular goals, there's got to be a better way. I don't know of any better way than the law itself. And we all had hopes that we would lead the world into a more humane and peaceful world. Well, those hopes, I'm sorry to say, have not been realized.
And your work to seek justice for the victims did not end with Nuremberg. You led the fight for reparative justice through compensation, restitution, and other measures for victims of the Nazi regime. As a granddaughter of survivors, I cannot tell you what that means to the survivors and their families. Why do you feel that it's so important that the concept of justice include not just criminal accountability for the perpetrators, but also some effort to try to repair the unimaginable harm that the victims endured?
First, you have to stop the killings. First stop. The next thing, you have to take care of the victims. And the third thing, you have to prevent it from happening again. So the Jewish organization said, look, we have to do something for the victims. I said, of course we have to do something for the victims. And so they said, we don't have any money to spend on this, but we have enough to cover your salary for 6 months. I said, all right, we'll try it. And I named myself the Director General of the Jewish Restitution Success Organization. I figured the Germans would be very impressed with that, with my being the director and the general. I was the only employee. We said we will not try to put a value on a human life. We will ask for compensation on the normal principles of the law. Compensation is vital, so they know they won't get away with it. They know they're going to have to pay through the nose for any wrongdoing, which exists in civil society. So the financial deterrent effect is there, but more important than that, the sense of justice. I learned that in first year in Harvard Law School. If you do some injury to somebody, a tort as we would call it, you have an obligation to try to make good. We had to find a technique which would enable the Germans to recognize responsibility. Precedents I had done, so well, I'll create precedents. And we did. And of course, they were inadequate. How do you compensate for the loss of a wife, a husband, a wife, a child, a mother? But it was an effort made.
It's incredibly powerful, Ben. Tragically, genocides and mass atrocities continue to plague humanity, and much work remains to be done to ensure justice and accountability. What do you see as the road ahead? And are you hopeful that at least we're moving in the right direction?
You know, we have glorified war making for centuries. So it's not something you can reverse in one human lifetime. We are making progress. We are making significant progress. I worked for many years to create an international criminal court after the Nuremberg International Military Tribunal was over. We have universal declarations of human rights, which are universally accepted with a few exceptions. We do have other international courts trying people for war crimes. So all of these things have happened in my lifetime, which is a long life, but a relatively short period of time. So we are making progress, but we have a long way to go because the biggest budgetary appropriation we have is for weapons to kill people. And now we can kill them even more than ever before. I could cry because that was our main hope, to substitute law and peaceful settlement of disputes, and everybody has a human right to live in peace and dignity, regardless of their race or creed. It's a human right.
Your vision for a more humane world fits squarely with the museum's mandate to confront hatred, prevent genocide, and promote human dignity. You've given so much to the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, an institution that you care so deeply about. What is it that you hope we can help achieve?
If you go through the Holocaust Museum and you see evidence of, you can't really smell it and feel it the burning, as I have, but you see this evidence of what still remains. The United States Holocaust Museum has the right answer, and that's why I have given all my money to that. Not all, I have a few other charities too, but I will end with nothing. And it's a very important thing. And I think the museum being a permanent institution to which many people will attend, people who say it never happened. They never say that in my presence. They wouldn't stand for long. But it's proof of the difficulties that we have. I think if you explain it to the people and they know you're telling the truth, they will seek a peaceful solution to all their problems. And they won't be easy solutions, but they're certainly going to be cheaper and better than going to war, which is the current system, and killing all kinds of innocent people who had nothing to do with it.
My grandmother would often say, God willing. Ben, what is your message to young people who want to take forward your life's work and who want to try to create a more humane and tolerant world?
The main lesson that I still carry with me is that most people are good and kind, but not all of them. Some of them, under the disguise of patriotism, love of country, will commit all kinds of crimes. People still turn to war making, the use of armed force, to achieve political goals, and it's a terrible doctrine. So, what can you do? Law, not war, is a valid slogan, but it needs another slogan, and I have that too: never give up. You have no choice. If you give up, you're doomed. You let evil take over. Try to recognize that as a human being, you have an obligation to behave like a human being with other human beings. If you can do that, I hope you'll have a better and more peaceful world than I have seen. And I wish you all the very best of luck.
Ben, thank you. That was incredibly powerful.
Thank you so
I
much.
thank you all also, we run away, all of you and all the staff from the Holocaust Memorial Museum who are keeping this flame alive. And it's very vital that you do so.
You remain an inspiration and a guiding force in our work to make Never Again a reality.
Thank you.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Holocaust survivor Rabbi Philip Lizowski, who is deeply affected by Nuremberg and Ben's work.
Thank you so much, Ben. As a Holocaust survivor, it means so much to me. I was a young child at the age of 11 when I witnessed all these atrocities. The Nuremberg trial felt that the world is coming to realize what the Bible has to say. Tzedek, tzedek tirdof. Justice, justice, they shall pursue.
To our grandparents and all the survivors, we pledge to keep your stories alive.
We will remember. We will remember. We will remember.
We will remember.
We will remember. We will remember. We will remember. We will remember.
As the child of a survivor, I learned the lessons of the Holocaust and took them deeply to heart. I understood that it was not enough to just remember, but that we must do our best to keep history from repeating itself.
The lessons of the Holocaust are more relevant than ever, and the Holocaust Museum is doing the crucial work of making this history accessible to today's audiences.
That's why I'm involved with the museum's Next Generation community here in New York.
This is an extraordinary time, and the museum needs our support. If you have not made your gift to the museum yet, please give today.
Please give as generously as you can.
What we do now can help shape a future different from the past.
What you do matters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your continuing support. And I want to offer special thanks to Diane von Furstenberg and Benjamin Ferenz for joining us this evening and for their incredibly generous support. Stay safe and be well. This concludes this evening's program. Thank you.